Hello, and you're watching the History Fella channel. In today's video we're looking at Shotgun John Collins. Abraham Graham, also known as John Collins, was born on his grandmother's plantation in Horry County, South Carolina, on November 22nd, 1851. His great-grandfather, Captain Edward Connor, had served in the South Carolina militia during the American War of Independence. His father, Hosie Graham, had married his first wife, Martha Ann Graham, and whilst Abraham was just a child, the whole family moved to Texas in covered wagons in 1859. The family settled in Limestone County, Texas, but little is known of Abraham Graham during his early teenage years, except that he'd become close friends with John Wesley Hardin. Both of their families were staunch Confederates, and they remained at odds with the Union throughout their lives. Abraham Graham's first brush with the law was whilst he was in his late teens, when a warrant for his arrest for cattle rustling was issued. He immediately left Texas and headed for New Mexico, ending up in White Oaks. John Collins, as he was now calling himself, found a job riding shotgun for Wells Fargo, where he met Wyatt Earp and Pat Garrett, who were also working for the company. It was during this period that he acquired the nickname Shotgun, mainly because of the number of times he used it in shootouts. After leaving Wells Fargo, he became a buffalo hunter and later a scout for the U.S. Cavalry. It was while working as a scout that he became involved in the battles with Geronimo and his Apache warriors. A chance meeting with John Wesley Hardin led him back to the wrong side of the law when he briefly rode with Sam Bass' gang, together with outlaws Johnny Regango, Arch Clement and Brown Bowen, rustling cattle and robbery. With the law hot on their trail, John Collins fled to Mexico to lay low until the hunt died down. Some time passed before Collins decided to return to Texas, and he moved to the small town of Uvalde. It was here that he met Captain J.J.H. Patterson, who led a group of 4 riders called the Uvalde Minutemen, and decided to join them. They patrolled the Mexican border with a fearsome reputation. As one resident put it, the Minutemen did what the Texas Rangers couldn't do. After several months with the Minutemen, John Collins decided to move on and went to New Mexico. He fell foul of the law once again after he threatened to kill a man named James Smith. The circumstances are not known, but suffice it to say that he was arrested by Sheriff Whitehill of Silver City, New Mexico, and held in jail. After a few days, he managed to persuade the sheriff to bail him out for $60 and promptly disappeared to Lincoln County. This was the time of the Lincoln County War of 1878, which was a conflict between 2 parties. One was led by James Doolan, who was the proprietor of a dry goods monopoly that controlled all the merchandise for general stores in the county, and because of this, he was able to charge extortionately high prices. The other party, the 2 ranchers James Tunstall and Alexander McSween, opened up a rival general store with the backing of one of the most powerful ranchers in the county, John Chisholm, where they sold similar goods at reasonable prices. James Doolan brought in help in the shape of Jesse Evans' gang and County Sheriff Brady, amongst others. John Tunstall and Alexander McSween organised their own ranch hands into what became known as the Regulators, together with their own lawman, Town Constable Richard Brewer, and Deputy U.S. Marshal Robert Widnam. The killing started with the murder of John Tunstall as he was riding back to his ranch, which then escalated into a series of revenge killings by the Regulators. It was about then that John Collins met Henry McCarthy, aka William Bonney, or Billy the Kid, and for a time rode with him and the regulators. The war finally came to a head after a 5-day gunfight, resulting in the death of Alexander McSween and many others. Despite the war being over, resentment festered throughout the county, and the appointment of Pat Garrett as county sheriff did not help much. John Collins decided to move on, and because William Bonney was now wanted for murder in Lincoln and several other counties, it wasn't too long before they parted and went their separate ways. John Collins moved to Old Socorro County, New Mexico, for a while. Then in April 1879 he was arrested for cattle rustling and horse theft and appeared in Ryan-Nisson Territory Court, New Mexico. The result of the trial is not known, but it's interesting to note that his brother-in-law John Long was the deputy sheriff at the time. John Collins returned to Uvalde, where he met and married Tabitha Cox. They had 6 children and at first used the name Collins, but later reverted to their name back to Graham. Then in 1883 he took to drifting around again. He met up with Wyatt Earp, and together they went to Dodge City to support Luke Short and the Dodge City Peace Commission, which consisted of Wyatt Earp, Luke Short, Bat Masterson, Charlie Bassett, Neil Brown, M. McLean, William Harris, Johnny Millsap, Texas Jack Vermillion, and Bill Tillman. They were all participants in what later became known as the Dodge City War. After this escapade, John Collins quietly retired in a relatively peaceful life. He was said to have died in a gunfight when at the age of 71 in El Paso, but his death certificate said it was of natural causes. It is tempting to imagine that in the Wild West in those days, being killed in a gunfight might have been considered natural causes.